Welcome to World Travel Market Africa 2026. We're talking about the future of nature seekers, travel, ecotourism and sustainability in the Western Cape. Welcome back to Green Noise, the podcast by CapeNature that gives voice to nature, tourism, ecotourism and conservation. My name is Dan Corder. I'm your host, joining you for another special, this time two-part installment series live from the World Travel Market Africa here in the Cape Town International Convention Centre in Cape Town. It'd be weird if it wasn't, given that it's at the Cape Town International Convention Centre here in April 2026. This is the first episode of the series, of the two-parter, and it's about the 2030 nature seeker. We're imagining what people are going to be wanting to do and what they're going to be wanting to spend time in nature doing and what they're going to want to be using and achieving while in nature in only 4 years' time now, which is crazy. Sitting here at the CTICC at WTM with two expert, wonderful people. The first, obviously, is the Marketing and Promotions Manager for CapeNature, Lauren Pavitt. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.
And next to her is someone who I've just met, but I know that I like already because your nickname is the same nickname as one of my favorite South African football players ever. So Ikaneng Opa Pilane is here. And I said Opa like a soccer commentator because I was in it already. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm well, thanks. And how are you, Dan? And thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. So we already know who Lauren is, but we're going to give a bit of a bio into you. You're the chairman of the South African Tourism Services Association.
Yes.
What is that about?
It's in short, we call it SATSA. It is an inbound tourism organization. So we have about 1,400 members all over South Africa and partner members in the SADC region. So our interest largely is to market tourism outside the borders of South Africa, largely in Europe, to bring more tourists down south.
Okay, so that's what inbound means. We're trying to get people to cross the border into South Africa,
yes.
And enjoy all the incredible things our country has to offer. But you're not only that, because you have been in this space for a long time. You're an entrepreneur yourself. You're a tourism development consultant, local government specialist, and as you are sporting today, for those unlucky enough to only be listening in this moment, Graskop Gorge Lift Company. What is that about?
Well, Graskop Gorge Lift Company is a nature-based adventure center based in Graskop in Mpumalanga, a small rural town in the panorama route next to the God's Window and the Blade River Canyon. So it is a 52-meter lift that takes you into the gorge.
Wow.
And about 700 boardwalks in the forest that you basically begin to learn more about the flora and fauna inside the forest. It is built in one of the few Afro-mountain forests that are left in the country.
Wow.
So we have therefore linked that with a big swing, which is more like a bungee jump, and zip lines. We've got cliff walks around here. So there's quite a few adventure activities that are happening in and around that area.
You as SATSA are having a discussion about how to have more geographic spread and not just have two centers of tourism, Kruger and the Western Cape.
Yes, so that conversation becomes important because what you want this tourism to spread and for people to experience this beautiful country of ours. And I have had an opportunity to travel around all these provinces. It is so amazing how many hidden gems are there to experience. Far much more than the two centers that we are talking about. But there's still a whole lot of work because it requires a partnership between governments and the private sector to be able to really market those areas. You want tour operators to start to look outside the Western Cape and the Kruger National Park also to spread the cake around the country.
Absolutely.
So those are the things that we are currently engaging with, and I think even at this tourism market, we will be engaging in such discussions.
I see. Lauren, CapeNature has done so much incredibly heavy lifting and hard work in the last particularly 4 years to recover from is there even a whale trail anymore, from a real survival of core, like, brilliant tourist experiences perspective to one more of being like resilience. How do we like build out a program or a project that provides conservation and ecotourism sustainably in the future that can survive future shocks. How do you think CapeNature has responded so strongly in the last 4 years or so to the COVID disaster?
Interesting question. It's been a while to think about the post-COVID recovery. Initially, it was all about the numbers and volumes and trying to get people back into nature and onto our trails, doing our activities, camping, staying in the overnight cottages. But now we've got a different narrative, Dan. We are now wanting to tell more meaningful stories.
Right.
Because the traveler today wants to know about the history of the environment they're in. They also want to understand how the local communities are part of the product offering. They want to know how our products are built. They want to understand how we are navigating challenges like climate change. They want to know what's CapeNature's carbon footprint.
Right.
And so it's no longer just about promoting the destination, but it's also a very important part of education and connecting it to people.
It sounds like you're trying to make the quality of the experience better, and you need to tell me what revenge travel is, because I'm fascinated by the concept. The thing that immediately comes to mind is, when we procrastinate at the end of the day, like we've had such a busy work day and we've worked, and then at the end of the day we're so tired we should probably go to bed, but maybe we'll doom scroll for a while instead and watch meaningless nonsense for hours and hours. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. We've been tired the whole time. We've gained basically nothing from this doom scrolling, but people say that the procrastination is revenge against the work day that we had that didn't allow us to do anything but work. Is revenge travel like that?
I can't imagine that it's the same thing, no, Daniel.
But what is it?
So revenge tourism was really a surgence of over-tourism after COVID. So a lot of people were stuck at home. They were extremely frustrated. They wanted to get outdoors and they couldn't. So we saw this surgence of an increase of bookings for travel. And what it did, it created a lot of pressure for over-tourism in particular destinations. And it also created an unrealistic demand that wasn't sustainable. And so what we are seeing now is more meaningful travel. Now it's the journey of it, it's unpacking it a little bit more, and it branches out to your digital nomads, who I think initially first started the trend of sustainable tourism and regenerative tourism, which is where most of the world is going towards. So sustainable tourism is really the mandate of the day, and it's where organizations and destinations are very much focused on. So it's not good enough anymore to just say that we are sustainable or that we provide ecotourism. Our travelers now want to know how.
I see.
Okay, so they want to know, how is my booking actually helping you to clear alien invasive plants?
Wow.
They want the detail of how that contributes to water generation.
Wow.
So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in the space so that we can be transparent with our visitors and tourists visiting Cape Nature reserves and South Africa.
Opa, is there even more? I'm thinking about all of the companies that you are part of representing with SATSA. Are more and more of them feeling a pressure to upgrade the ways that they integrate technology into what they do, because more and more inbound tourists want to be able to use a cashless payment system, or they want Wi-Fi connection everywhere, or they want to be able to, in the extreme circumstances, be taken to a place which will make for a really good Instagram picture because the vista is so beautiful. Is there more and more of an expectation that your companies that you represent are feeling that we've got to be hyper-tech modern because people visiting are wealthier and also coming from tech-developed places?
Look, I think we are all aware that we've got to go towards that route. Right now, any business that does not have Wi-Fi for its customers will struggle to survive. And therefore, we ought to be able to look at how best we can make that as easy for the business people as possible. And remember, the tourism sector, the interesting thing about the tourism sector is that it's almost 80% small business.
Wow, that's true.
You know,
that's
yeah,
true.
it is 80% small business. Most of the businesses are family owned. You know, they are not as big as in these other sectors that we see in the economy. So you then have these small business people that have to contend with all the pressures that are coming on them, and most of them are older people, and they are really
Right.
not into technology. So you find that puts a bit of pressure on them to even begin to understand what is AI.
Yes.
You know, so you kind of have to go through that whole process of education, you know, and not only education, but also to find ways and means of getting people that will then be able to help them,
Yes,
you know, to
yes.
navigate through that requirement. So that's where we find ourselves right now. And I mean, cashless, it becomes very, very important. And I promise you, South Africans still use a lot of cash.
Of course.
Yeah, they still use a lot of cash. I mean, in one of my businesses, I had to stop cash because I was bombed 5 times
Wow.
in a space of 3 years.
Wow.
You know,
Couldn't have anything on the
yeah,
property.
Yeah, so I was bombed 5 times in the space of 3 years. So also for security reasons.
Yes, it's
you
safer.
know, yeah, we got to be able to look at that.
Do you
know.
find that inbound tourists from other countries are carrying around wads of South African Rand notes and then like handing them out, or are they generally trying to use a MasterCard or a Visa card payment?
I think almost 99% of them now use their
Card.
MasterCards and
Yes.
Visa cards, to a point where in Mpumalanga we've now begun also a program to introduce machines
see.
to vendors along the road.
Fascinating.
You know, yeah, because they were losing out on a lot of sales,
Yeah.
you know, because they didn't have speed points.
Yes,
So now
yes.
we basically, as the private sector, as government, I mean, in one of our establishment that I'm running, the Graskop Gorge, I've got about 14 vendors there. I personally had to make sure that I get them
Yes, of course.
those speed points, because when I went cashless,
Yes.
and they were still using cash, you know, so I had to make sure that I train them, get them the speed points to be able to, and they're now making more sales
Of course.
than they were making. So more and more South Africans, not only inbound tourists, more and more South Africans are beginning to use their cards, but we still have a lot, of course, of South
Cash,
Africans that are
yes.
still using cash. But yeah,
You know, one of the big ideas in this episode is slowing down, actually staying in one place long enough to feel it. And that's exactly what you get at Grootvadersbos Nature Reserve. This isn't a quick stopover. It's forest cabins set deep in indigenous woodland where your days open up naturally. One day you're walking beneath towering trees. The next you're just sitting in silence, letting nature reset your system. It's that idea of nature bathing we've been talking about. Not just visiting nature, but really experiencing it. And the beauty is, you don't need to go anywhere else. Within a small radius, there's more than enough to fill a few days, even a full week, which is what slow travel is all about. If that sounds like your kind of break, you can book directly through CapeNature's website at capenature.co.za or via their contact center on 087 087 8250. Cape Nature. Conserve, explore, experience. Lauren, tell me about Cape Nature's success going cashless.
So I absolutely love going cashless. In February this year, Cape Nature launched the first 5 of our sites to go cashless,
Including Stony Point, Robberg, yeah?
and it's been phenomenal. Firstly, security is up, and that's a priority for us. So we want to make sure that both our local and international visitors feel safe when they're on the reserve. And very often they're spending quite a few hours on the reserve, and you don't really want to be operating with a lot of cash in your pockets
course.
when you're doing that. It's also about having the seamless travel experience. So, for example, people that travel to Robberg and Stony Point, they want to feel like they can just arrive without being bothered. You know, eventually, I think in the next 3 to 4 years, we probably aren't even going to have entrance gates. You know, we'll probably just have some sort of new technology where you walk in and it's biometrics and we know you've arrived, and you go on your hike and it's a wonderful immersive experience and you're so relaxed and cut off from the stresses of the world, and then you leave. And if we need to contact you, we just go on this biometric cloud with all your data, and we can inform the mountain rescue teams that are flying in by a drone, and we can assist you if you injure yourself along the trail.
That's incredible. What a prospect. Also, I have recently been made aware of the concept of an agentic AI, essentially meaning an AI assistant that is reading your own health biometric data to recommend to you whether or not you should do that hike. Maybe that incline's a little bit much for your heart, for your cardio numbers, maybe not great, or maybe...
Know your limits.
Yeah, exactly. Don't run there, or you can do this walk, but only this much a day, to give real-time kind of like this hiking trail or this kind of activity, this whitewater rafting is within the range of your ability of your body to handle it safely, I imagine. Oh, but do you ever say to your guys or at least the guests at your lift company, are you sure you have the stomach for what's about to happen to you?
No, we do, and I think you would want to go the route that you are speaking about on that AI, because some of our customers hide their illnesses, because they want to have this experience.
Totally.
So somebody then decides to jump, only to find that they struggle with a heart disease. And then it just unnecessarily creates complications for them, and then it looks bad on the business. When you look at their history, you then realize this person has got serious heart problems and they're not supposed to stress it that much. So
it also gives
this challenge that really we face with in some of these adventure activities that we do.
And at least if there's biometric data that the customer, the tourist, has, then they have a degree of responsibility over their own health with the information that they've been given, which is cool. And this all kind of connects together in this other concept that I was thinking about mental health, right?
Yes.
So like, say you're having a really rough life. We all have rough lives sometimes, and then suddenly some kind of AI app assistant goes, I've got this banging retreat for you up in the mountains, and it's free this weekend if you book right now, and it's through CapeNature or it's with the lift company or something like that. It's really exciting, actually.
No, it is. I mean, if you look at the future traveler focus now is on wellness.
Yes.
They want to retreat to places because they work in cities, most of them, and they want to get away from the cities, and they want to take some time off. And I think the hybrid work also helps us. So they want to spend more time in the outdoors.
Yes.
And these outdoors must also enable them to be able to continue with their life. So you don't want it to be disturbed. You don't want someone to say, "Oh, I went to CapeNature Reserve. Now I have to go to the reception to get Wi-Fi."
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the future traveler is looking at that, but also the future traveler is young. So he doesn't go to Africa for sunbathing. He goes to Africa for adventure.
Yes.
So our nature reserves, we need to find innovative way of integrating adventure activities without undermining, the environment there. Because you want them to stay longer, you want them to diversify the offering.
Yeah.
So that is the future traveler. But also the future traveler is technologically aware.
Totally.
So they need to be able to, not that much interrupt their lifestyle.
Yes,
but
of course.
they still need to have access to their technology.
Yeah.
So we need to really begin to start investing a lot in looking at what other areas, and not only the future traveler. You basically now, in terms of technology, if we are talking about responsible tourism, you are responsible not only to the able person, but also to the disabled person,
course.
where we need to be able to use technology so that they can then have an immersive experience with our offerings.
Absolutely.
So technology helps us to be able to deal with the guy that is deaf, to be able to deal with the guy that can see, and to be able to deal with a guy that is on crutches or on a wheelchair. So those are the things that we basically now need to be conscious of as we start to build our businesses for the future.
Absolutely. And I wonder if I wonder if we are technologically ready in terms of technological capacity, right? Like infrastructure. Like if you turn to a government policy and say, like, can our telecoms companies? I know that if you're on certain data providers, not going to say which one, you're going to struggle to get a WhatsApp call in this building, the CGICC, let alone in the middle of nowhere on a reserve. So we do need to worry about that. But Lauren, and one thing I know CapeNature's been thinking about a lot is the fact that we are becoming a more water scarce country. There's the potential prospect of desertification here, or at least drier, hotter climates, less rainfall because of climate change. We've come this close to day zero already, and not in the Joburg way where the taps were just broken and the pipes were crumbling, but because we did not have enough water. Has CapeNature been working to address a lot of those concerns?
Definitely. So CapeNature sites, as you know, Daniel, is remote. So very often we can't rely on municipal supply of water and electricity. So we've kind of had to build our own.
Wow.
It's very costly. So it's a project that we do over time as we get funding in a 5-year cycle. So there are quite a few of our sites like Roshapan, Cedarburg, Algeria, that's off the grid.
Yes.
But then at the same time, the challenges you face is unpredictable weather patterns. And so often, there'll be a wildfire and we could lose a very important infrastructure. So it's a day-to-day challenge that we have to mitigate with our tourism operations, but also looking at our tourism operations and how to make it more seamless.
Yes.
And how do we bring in technology like AI to improve on those processes, to keep our footprint light, but even lighter than before.
Absolutely.
And so we need to understand how the communities surrounding our reserves will benefit from the projects and the products that are in our reserves.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be the key tie-in for the future traveler, is to build it around that, because they want to see the community's benefits and they want to see it in practice, not just on paper.
Absolutely. And it seems like the future traveler might have way more hectares of land to enjoy, as far as I understand. What's the 30 by 30 or 30 times 30 mandate and the green gold?
So essentially, CapeNature is multiple. We've got many facets, right? So it's not just tourism. Our mandate is also focused on nature conservation and biodiversity. And so we've got a stewardship program as well within CapeNature, where we try and build corridors throughout the province to connect, right? So that we aren't just looking at land in isolation, but through partnerships and making more areas having conservation value.
I see.
And so we help private landowners sort of manage that conservation value of their properties. And so that's going to be critical for the 2030 traveler, because they want to experience that. So they are coming for the view. They are coming to see the penguin, but they also want to know that this beautiful protea that I've photographed, I'm not only photographing it because it's aesthetic, but because I contributed to its recovery. I contributed to why this protea is still here in this wild area. And that is the work that we've got ahead of us to make sure that we can continue doing this work.
Absolutely. Oh, but a lot of different companies and people in this sector, tourism industry, are talking about the expanded public works programs, plans for 4 or 5 years' time to apply new requirements to licenses to operate, including the fact that different companies have to benefit local communities. Small and medium-sized companies are going to have to more explicitly show that they are helping people in the communities that are so naturally blessed as to be able to provide business opportunities for business owners there to be able to give back. That must be really exciting. I guess creatively exciting, actually.
I think it's long overdue, and I think as a business people, we also have a duty to make sure that this tourism that we are talking about is sustainable. The biggest security threat in this country is to have poor communities around your businesses.
Yes.
And if you want these communities to be the first line of defense, they basically need to benefit from that, and not superficial, but real, authentic benefits of that business. And we've been saying to government, you have you've got the most pristine tourism attraction sites. And if we are to look at the beneficiation, let us use those sites to also create opportunities for communities. When you're thinking of commercialization, let's also put a condition that not only are we looking at employment, but we also were looking at equity ownership. From the top, you start from the top, that these communities must also have a share in this facility that we are planning to do. But also you need to then go down to make sure that you give them the first preference of employment, in that area. But also you need to go further to look at, can you source some of your supplies from them, so that there is a much broader base. When we talk about broad-based BEE, we're not only saying it's only broad-based amongst the comrades. It should be broad-based into the communities themselves in the manner in which they benefit from that. So those are the and it needs commitment, because it is a lot of work. We are always looking at the easy way out. I've got my company, I get guys, 2-3 guys, but it requires a lot of work in itself, because you are dealing with communities that needs to be educated into understanding how businesses, especially tourism businesses, function. So you've got to add that on top of the work that you need to do in terms of attaining the sustainability part of tourism.
I agree. It's always better as a business to source locally. There is literally less time on travel, so you get quicker delivery. There are fewer travel costs, so it is cheaper. You can forge a relationship in a smaller area with a supplier. You can create that relationship and rely on it. But to convince somebody in your community to develop a business that will supply your business, you need to tell them, I'm going to have work for you for 10 years. If it's not seemingly likely that I'm going to want your business for longer than a year or two, you're not going to bother in the first place to set up that business, because there's no certainty that like the effort that you're putting in is going to get anything out. So that's really important. I completely agree, Opa. And to both of you now, as we come to the end of this special episode, I want to ask from SATSA's perspective, and then finally CapeNature's perspective, as we build towards Nature Seeker 2030 as an idea of this future traveler, what is on your respective organizations' agendas in the coming 3.5-4 years? Opa?
For us as SATSA, it's the geographic spread.
Okay.
So that is high on our agenda. Number 2, we are focusing on what we call so we've got a new name for transformation, because we are not only looking at bringing the previously disadvantaged on board, but also we are looking at all the other aspects that I've touched upon of the disabled people.
Of course.
It becomes very, very important that as we discuss accessibility but the issues of sustainability becomes important, because one of the key things that brings people here is our sites, the beautiful sites. So we've got to be able to make sure that they are proper and safe. I mean, if you look at the Kruger National Park now, we have started a project working with the Kruger National Park, because if we don't have the Big Five, then we will no longer be the best pristine safari destination. So we've got to make sure that those rhinos, they survive and they're protected. So it's not only Kruger National Park or Sun Park's work. It is all of us in the tourism sector that must make sure that it is protected. It is not only the job of CapeNature to see to it that those proteas are protected. It is all of us. We've got to make sure that those, because that is the main thing that brings people here. And to now, the second layer is to ensure that people are benefiting directly. They're sustainable on that. So that's another layer that we need to build in consciously and seriously as business. So as SATSA, we are basically looking at that to say we need to take that very, very seriously. And we speak with our businesses to begin to look into that. Animal interaction becomes another thing where we are now saying, let us discourage people from playing with animals. How do we then able to manage that.
I understand.
Because you also want those animals to have their freedom of being animals,
Of
not
course.
of being pets, especially the wild animals. So we are looking at that. We are now engaging with the Department of National Tourism and also the Department of Environment to look at a policy that looks at animal interaction.
I see.
So we are seriously looking at issues of sustainable and responsible tourism in a far much more serious and broader way.
I see. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
And Lauren Pavitt, what's on the road to 2030 for CapeNature?
So from a tourism perspective, a key focus for CapeNature is to really build on our international traveller. So CapeNature is very loved locally, and I think that is why we survived COVID. So I must say thank you to all of the locals. But so now, in the next 5 years, we really want to grow that international audience base. And our main goal to achieve that is through partnerships, like with SATSA and other bodies, and also connecting the provinces to create sort of unique experience so that visitors stay longer.
I see.
Right? And then from a CapeNature mandate perspective, in terms of marketing, I must stress that if I look at the 2030 traveller, technology is going to be key. So the digitalization of our marketing strategy is what's on my agenda.
Right.
Right? And so with AI, for example, when we Google on our cell phones, it's hardly websites that come up. There's an AI that's
Yes.
telling you
Yes.
your answer.
Yes.
So we have to change our marketing strategy to focus on the fact that we want AI to pick CapeNature up
I hear you.
and recommend CapeNature as a solution to whatever your traveling needs are.
Right.
And in order to do that, it starts with the strategy of our online presence. And so previously there was a lot of focus on SEO. It's now GEO and a whole bunch of other fancy abbreviations, but it's all linked to AI at the end of the day.
I see.
And so if your copy is not written for AI,
Yeah.
if your videos aren't filmed for AI, if your
Yeah.
photographs aren't taken with AI in mind, it's not going to be a top search result.
Totally.
And so that is what my team and I are really focusing on, so that CapeNature stays top of mind.
I see.
And I think about 2 years ago, we really saw the AI travel assistant come into reality, where you could literally put it into a prompt and say,
Find
this
you
is
your
what I
flights."
want to do, find me the best price,
Yeah.
find me the best locations.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the tourism industry was a little bit intimidated by that, and we thought we were going to lose jobs.
Yes.
It was really challenging time. But I think we have a unique opportunity, because the one thing AI is not built in is trust.
Yes, exactly.
People trust people. And so if we can groom our own AI assistants to represent us as human beings, it just makes us more efficient.
Exactly.
And it makes us smarter so that we can beat the algorithms and also get the value for the money that we need to generate when it comes to bookings. And so I definitely think that that's going to be a very big focus for CapeNature in the next 3-4 years, to reach the 2030 traveller and know that we will be able to be an option for them, and we aren't lost in this algorithm online.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to the both of you for such a fascinating conversation. Lauren Pavitt from CapeNature and SATSA and Graskop Gorge of Companies, Opa Pilane. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to you for joining us, whether you watched or listened to this first of 2 parts of the special CapeNature podcast.